We have already blasted the piece with the satin varnish coat for VMS, and now we're going to go ahead and, whoops, almost popped the top. The texture coat. This is Brown Earth, number 4, VMS P04. And also attached on there some of the binders, the matte Alcat binders. Now, so we're going to go ahead and apply a little bit of the binders, a little bit of the Alclad pigment, and mop this on to the Studs Child. All right, so to get started, first of all, we're going to go ahead and have our stiff brush, toothpick, tweezers, measuring cup, okay, to put the pigment in. This little spatula scraper thing I like using. A very fine brush to brush away some of that stuff that's on there, some of the mud that we're going to pack on there. And a test subject. We're going to go ahead and test it on this. Now, it hasn't been sprayed. I just want to see what the effects are and see how that's going to work on the Studs Child. So I'm going to move this out of the way briefly. I'm going to attach, pour in some of this pigment. Now, I'm not going to use a whole lot. Again, having that napkin below is probably going to be beneficial to make sure that you don't make a complete mess of your workbench. I poured just enough to cover the cup there. The cool thing about VMS is that they have this really cool little top squeeze bottle. It fits onto the cap really well, really tightly, and I was pretty impressed with that. So here we go. I'm gonna dab that stuff right on in there. Now, how much? I really don't know. It didn't really say how much to use, just enough that you'll be able to mix that stuff in there. A little bit needing a lot more of this because it's all sticking to the brush. Sure looks like mud to me. And it doesn't have to be really perfect, really pretty. All right, so we added some of that on there. The next thing they ask us to do to speed up the process is to get a hair dryer. So we do have one. Not that I need one, because I don't need one. But we're going to go ahead and put this onto a medium heat. So the results look a little bit more dry, and we're representing this dry mud. So again, we're going to go ahead and brush that off for the parts that we don't need. And the part that I did brush off initially stained that plastic. Kind of want to keep some of that on the hoop there, on that foothold. So once that's done, and we are satisfied with what we have, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go to the universal weathering carrier. This is like to lighten up some of the smudge marks that we have on here, kind of blend it into the color of the plastic or the paint in this case, or the plastic in this case. But I am kind of curious how I'm gonna remove this mud, this stuff, out of the cup. I sure hope it's water-based. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and add some of that universal carrier onto this palette that I have. Okay, so we're gonna use another brush just to wipe some of the little chunks off there. I want to keep some of that mud on that rail there. And then we're going to use this universal stuff to wipe down, remove. And yeah, not too bad for a test subject. Gives it that little bit worn, muddy look. What I like to do is try to get some of that onto like the corners there, like a little wet effect. So with the wet effect, that's what this guy's for. As you can see, it says right there, wet effect. Alkyd binders. Okay, and it's the same process. You add it onto your mud and then just drip it on there. But we're going to go into the cleanup stage. We're going to see how I can clean up my brushes here, and hopefully I can do that. We'll see. All right, so after giving it a bit of a wash in warm water, it looks like it comes off with water, although there's a bit of a stain, at least in the measuring cup here. And there's a bit of a stain on the brushes. Now, they're still pliable. They're still drying a little bit. I think just using water actually is probably the best way to clean these brushes. Warm, hot water seems to disperse it pretty well. As far as the brush that I use for the universal carrier, that one worked really well. Brush seems to be pretty pliable. So water seems to be the trick in cleaning those. Maybe soapy water might be a better idea, but it seems to be working pretty well. As you can see, the results after about an hour, they'll solidify a little bit more within an hour, and seems to be doing pretty well. So we're going to go ahead, go to the next phase, and that's the stitch job. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get ready on applying the mud texture onto the front spade, the front support plate, that is. Not going to pile up too much mud. It's more like a dusty application of dirt that we'll be using a little bit later. But I do want to put a bit of the mud saturation onto the blade. So we're going to go ahead and get a bit more of the VMS brown texture coat. Okay, this is your brown earth that we're using. And so it's gonna just slowly spoon some of that stuff in there. Now I did put enough inside the mixing cup because we're gonna do several of the wheels as well. Hopefully the matte varnish, the satin varnish, will actually protect the wheels. I was having some difficulty with the airbrush applying that varnish, but we're going to go ahead next, get your VMS Alkyd binders, matte type, and squeeze that stuff in there. Okay, after mixing it up with my little rod over here, we're going to go ahead and apply that So again, using the brush that I used the first time on the testing material, we're going to just dab a bit of it right onto the spat child here. So just brush it straight on. And again, we're just mucking it up a bit. And there you go. Okay, just that part for the time being. Okay, some of that on my hand, not a big sweat. Next thing we're going to do the wheels, the road wheels. Okay, and again, same thing, just plaster it on there. It doesn't have to be pretty, but you do want it around there. Okay, just like that. And we'll talk to you about how this comes out. So once the application of the mud has been done, we're going to go ahead and hit it with the... And as you can see, using a hot air dryer, it just speeds up the binders. It dries them up a lot quicker so that we can move on to the next section. But looking at it, it looks quite realistic. I mean, it's looking really good just for my initial application. I haven't even used oops, that's the wrong one. Your universal weathering carrier. That's going to be the next step that we'll do to clean up some of the mud. Okay, but we're going to go ahead and go on to the wheels that were being blown around here a little bit. It's okay, that's going to happen. Okay, and I'll just show you how one of... All right, so as you can see, I've already pretty much air dried the sprockets, road wheels, idler, front support blade, Stutz child. Some areas are going to be more muddy, looking at your reference pictures, than others. So the sprocket, obviously, the drive wheel is going to be pretty banged up. The idler as well, it's going to be pretty muddy as well, but those guys are going to be turning through the mud. The front road wheel is going to be pretty messed up, as well as the back road wheel. And I actually came by and did 3 of the back road wheels. So these guys will be in the back. The middle ones don't seem to carry too much mud. If anything, I'll probably keep this one right here. That one's pretty muddy, and this one very sparsely muddy. That's what I've seen in my reference books. I'm not going to do the back side of the road wheels. Like I said, this is my first time applying this stuff, and I'm just... You know, I would like to keep the model looking nice, but then, of course, it should be muddied up as well. Make sure that when you're using that hair dryer, that you get a lot of the stuff that's loose on your workbench out of the way. You don't want anything to be flying around per se, photo edge, decal sheets, aluminum foil, whatever the case may be. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and hit it with a toothpick and or brush, cleaning brush, stiff bristle brush, to get rid of some of the mud deposits around there. So that's the next thing we'll do. So the last thing I want to point out, don't forget the underside. It does cake up on there pretty much. I didn't really put any scratches because it's going to be pretty much muddied up. But as you can see on the part that we could see big time, that looks pretty real. I like it. It looks really nice. The clumps that are on there, yes, they're going to mask some of the detail, but that's what's going to happen. As far as the top that's not being dirtied up, that's what the universal carry is going to be about. We're going to kind of like smear that mud stuff on there, lighten up some of the patches that are on there. and make it look, you know, a lot more realistic. So again, that's going to be our next step. I'm going to go ahead and clean up with our toothpick first. So starting with the sprocket, we're going to just go ahead and lightly clean up, open up some of the holes of the sprocket wheel itself. I mean, it's not going to be all nice and neat. As you can see, you can kind of see through the sprocket wheel there, the light coming through. Some of the mud's going to, you know, stay on there. I'm going to eventually polish the teeth of that sprocket wheel a bit, just to make sure that it shows some weathering on there as well. And that's fine by me. Using a paper towel underneath your workbench, above your workbench, excuse me, is ideal. Again, as you can see, a bit of the mess that's occurring on there. So make sure that you get your workbench covered up. Okay, I'm gonna kind of just beat off a little bit of the mud on there. Not too much. You don't want to be too aggressive with it. You do want to have some mud accumulation within the rims. I'm just trying to brush off some of it on the rubber part of the wheel. That's what I'm using that for. Okay, and I'm trying to keep these guys in order. And if it still seems a little wet, so if you still have some of it accumulating on there, hit it with the hot air dryer to remove some of that mud. Dry it up a bit using your stiff brush. There really is no way to clean these, so just FYI, I've been talking to another person who's done this VMS stuff, and he said these brushes are going to be thrown away. I hope not. I kind of hope I can reuse them. This brush set seems really, really good in what I needed to do. So I'm going to try to refurbish them, try to, you know, hopefully get them a little bit cleaner. We'll see. We'll see. I think when I used water, maybe you should use like a hot water to remove you know, the the pigments off of there. So I'm going to use a hot water, maybe even a hot soapy water, to see if I can remove that. Yeah, but just use that stiff brush to knock down most of that mud. Don't knock it all down, because you do need it. That looks about right, yeah, okay. Here's the next dirty one. Again, I'm just rubbing off. Okay, next thing we'll do, we'll just kind of clean up a little bit around the rubber part. Again, not too tough, not too hard. Just lightly go around. I think the carrier might work a little bit better than what we need to do. I'm going to try to, the mud looks good. I kind of like that mud effect on there. It's a little rough. On the rims there, around the wheels there. So I'm going to kind of keep it that way. I don't know if I'll use that universal carrier on here. I might use it on the rubber part of the wheels, just to give it that a little bit of that muddied look onto them. As you can see, just with the mud that I attached onto the rims, it looks quite nice. Okay, and again, I'm trying to keep these wheels in order, front to back. So when I install them back onto the lower hole, you'll get that nice effect there. All right, so we're going to continue. Like I said, not much debris needs to be wiped off. The Stitch Child looks good the way it is. I like that effect right now. That looks great. I don't think I'm even going to, well, I'll use a little bit. Not too much because the effect looks really cool. If anything, they might ask you to like drop the pigments on there and use the alkyd binders. Alkyd binders will be able to like brush that stuff off and make it look like a smeared mud instead of a clumped mud like we have right now. Okay, so I'll talk to you in a moment. All right, so the next thing we'll do, we're going to go ahead and use the universal carrier. Again, this is more or less of a bit of a wash that we'll apply. Again, using a Meet Up Tester's brush. You've seen these before. We're going to go ahead and just lighten up, smooth out some of the mud that's on there. Starting with the flaps, the steps that we have on there. And as you can see, just as I put it up on top, you notice how it ran down, that capillary action. So that's a great effect. Just demonstrated here on the other side here. Just drop it in there and see how it smooths in there, and then just slightly brush that stuff up. Okay, it gives that smooth effect. The cylinder that we have here, unfortunately, got a little bit of mud pigment on there, so I'm using the universal carrier just to clean that stuff off. Now, as you can see, it's pulling up inside the area where I'm using it. So use your, and I didn't do that, use your paper towel to kind of like wipe some of that stuff down. And again, having that paper towel is beneficial for those of you who are still working at home with mom. My mom's my wife. Okay, you don't want to make a mess on her floor. That's why we have our own little room sometimes, you know. Yeah, just remove some of that, and just, in this case, I'm going to brush it up just a bit. I'll probably use another color to splash this stuff on. Because I like those clumps on there. That looks really cool. And sure looks shiny right now. We're going to blast it with the hair dryer. Just a few moments. Again, smear it around here. And see how that universal carrier kind of like, you could see a bit of the whole color, the original color that we had on there. And you can see as well how it's like blending in the colors. Now, I didn't do these. I gotta probably repaint that. That's not a big deal. All right, that looks good. Let's go ahead and zap that with the hair dryer here. And as you can see, yeah, especially that side plate, that step plate right there, that looks really cool. You see how that came out? It's like a streaking action that I had. The front part of the spade came out pretty well. I probably would hit that again over there on its its left side of that step plate. And again, instead of going back and forth, maybe I should streak it going up. So I'm going to go and re-hit that one again and dry it up. Now, the only thing I haven't done is the wheels. I'll do that next, and I'll show you how the effect comes out on that one. Try to get on that clean part of your paper. I think is beneficial. looks good. Let me hit this one again. Okay, let's see how that comes out. Get my hair dryer. And there it is. You know, not bad, not bad. Now, we could just let it air dry. That's fine. Not too concerned about that. Put my wheels back down, back in line here. Getting back in line, guys. And yeah, so that looks good. For a first time building a tank and weathering it, I like it. The only thing I haven't done are the wheels. I'll get to that next, and I'll show you the results at the end. And so just the idler wheel, you know, not too much mud caked on there, but the smearing effect of the universal carrier does seem to work quite well. As you can see, a little bit of discoloration from the one rubber wheel compared to the other one. You know, that's about what I want. I'm fine with that. Now, there's some areas that universal carrier might not have been placed on there, but the other wheels, you know, they look pretty cool. And besides this being my first model that I'm actually using this mud concoction, I'm quite happy with the results VMS. It looks really great. The smearing, the caking of the mud looks really good. So I'm very happy with that. Very happy. Let me go ahead and finish these guys off. So with the application of the mud, the brown earth from VMS, and getting some pretty good, satisfactory results of the mud inlay, we're going to go ahead and move on to the upper hull of the tank. But this time what we're going to be using is something a little bit different before we actually apply the mud. We might apply the mud again to the forward section of the tank, since it will get muddied up there by the idler, the front suspensions and such. So we'll get to that soon enough. But I'm going to go ahead into the next phase, the next part of the weathering. So let's take a look at that. So the next part we're going to go ahead and use a different product. This is AK Interactive Rain Effects, Rain Marks Effects, AK 074. Hopefully you can see that. And we're going to apply that onto the side skirts. Now we're going to do that first using the side skirts, using the rain marks on there first before we apply the mud. As I've been researching and looking over many different times, it looks like the rain marks effect should be applied first before applying that mud splash onto the upper hull. As far as the upper portion, that upper deck, we're going to worry about that a little bit later, but I do want to go into using the rain mark effects using the AK Interactive. So that's going to be the next part that we're going to do. And I'm a little hesitant, just a little bit, because I haven't really used AK Interactive that much, so we're going to give it a shot. Hopefully the varnish that I sprayed onto the hull will hold up with this product. It's an enamel. Get that in there. It's an enamel effect for scale models. And I do have the thinner for AK Interactive, so I do have that thinner. I've had AK stuff for a while. I just never used it on a model like this. I've used it on a couple of my ships, giving it that streaking effect. So we're going to try that out right now. I'm going to clear this area and get started on the side skirts. So just really quickly, before we start on that next phase of the weathering, I did roughly attach the lower hole to the upper hole. A couple things. I have seen pictures, images of the back panel, either the rear one or two of the rear ones being lifted up to allow the mud not to coalesce too much underneath the tank, of the real tank, that is. So I've seen that. I may do that one panel just to lift it up to give it some of that removal of the mud. But the other thing I want to point out, yikes. Maybe I should have done the whole underside of the tank. Not the side skirt, but underneath, inside there. It's very glaring from one end to the other end. If you look closely inside there, let me see if I can bring that light a little closer. It's pretty glaring. Lesson learned, because I already attached the wheels. They seem to be okay, but I don't want to keep on removing them and putting on, removing them, because I'm just afraid I might break off some of those pins of the suspension. So lesson learned, if you're going to do the mud on the inside portion where the tracks are rolling through, do the whole side, do the whole hole. Don't just do part of it. I was thinking, oh, the wheels are going to cover that up, but no. I mean, it covers it up to that respect, to that back portion. You could see closely the mud that's on there, that's caked on there on the back. But then at the rear, excuse me, at the forward part, it doesn't really show it that well. So it's kind of weird looking, having it like that. Lesson learned. I'll make sure I don't do that again on my next model. But the effects on the wheels looks good. I like it. VMS. I like that mud textured stuff. And I moved the wheels to where they're going to be more muddy than others, like the rear wheel, the sprocket. It's going to be pretty messed up. As you can see again in the videos there, as you can see that rear wheel here and this one over here. It's pretty caked on. Well, the middle wheels get very little, if any, of the mud accumulated on there. I did the forward wheel muddied up because it's just starting to dig into the terrain that it's in. So I did do that part. So again, moving on, rain effects. I'm going to just open up the top. I don't think I need the whole dip brush in there. I do have a couple of brushes, just hobby store brushes, nothing big. But I did label them as my weathering brushes that I have. The first one for the paint, the second one for the thinner. I did pour the thinner into a paint palette that's down below, and I also have a small napkin just to get rid of some of it. So I'm going to go ahead and put this away since I don't need the whole bloody thing. And it's a good thing that you actually put the thinner into a paint palette, so that way you don't contaminate your bottle. So good idea to do that. Anyways, let's get started. We're going to go ahead and paint just several vertical brushes on here. Let me see if I got the correct one here. So we're just going to just paint a few little brush strokes right along there. Just dap it on there just a little bit. And we're going to just dap it there, make it random. And then once we randomly place them, we're going to go ahead into using our other brush to streak it. So give it some time for it to dry. Hopefully we'll be able to see it. I mean, I did get it for NATO tanks. I mean, I don't know if that makes any difference, but just add a little bit of the spirit, the white spirit. Remove some of it on your paper towel there, and just streak it downward. Streak it downward. Now the thing is, though, if you use too much, not a big deal, just reapply it. And just go vertically in a downward motion. Just as you see me doing with this big blob, it's down to black. Come on. Okay. Well, I mean, it kind of gives it that look a bit. Just add a little bit more. Maybe this time I won't let it sit there and dry. That one I'm going to reapply a little bit. This time just hit it right away. There we go. That's a little bit better. And there you go. Something that looks kind of like that. Hopefully you could see that. Some bit of this streaking on there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and continue with that just on the size of the hole. All right, so I just quickly did the right-hand side of the tank. I added quite a bit up on here while it was still wet. Hit it with the thinner. So don't wait for it to dry. Hit it right away with the thinner. So just do small patches and just go ahead and streak that thing down. Now, I did do two sides. I did this top portion up here, and then I did that side skirt at the bottom. So that's what I did here. So the result, yeah, I would say cool beans. I'm going to hit that up with the bridge a bit more, at least the nearby parts where it'll be nearby the possible river basins that this vehicle will be training through. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other side and just show you the results at the end. Okay, so with both sides now being done, the results look very good. I like it. Maybe just a little bit less damp over here. I'll try to correct that. Oh, it looks like I made a mistake there. I could probably wash it off with a little mud. Flip side, I think looks much better. Maybe a bit much. Maybe I'm just getting a little over exuberant, and maybe I should streak it down a little bit more, especially towards the middle in here. But no, the results came out very good. Okay, so Yahoo. Thank you, AK Interactive. Try to show that to you in some stills. So now with the bridge, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the bridge. I'm going to hold just half of the bridge. So you see here, this is part of the bridge that's not been weathered. Quite a long bridge. And this is the part that's been weathered with the rain effects from AVLB. It might be a bit stark looking at it, but I'm going to just try to mat it down I think that will lessen the effect a little bit. Don't want to lessen it too much. So the idea is to have watermarks along that bridge side. The next part is going to be weathering the track on here. That's going to be an interesting way. Hopefully it becomes successful. Way if I can actually make a muddy track along the bridge on both sides. And parallel, for that matter. Okay, so that's going to be the next part. So here on board the Battleship Iowa, we're going to go ahead and weather the bridge. The first time we're going to be weathering the bridge. As you can see, I have laid down this plastic track from AVLB, and I've already started sprinkling a bit of the VMS powder, the pigment that is. So I'm going to just go ahead and get my pigment, get my brush, and basically all I'm doing is just grabbing it a little bit at a time and just sprinkling it on top. Now the idea is to have, let me get a bit more, have this pigment fall in between the tracks, on the edges of the tracks, and to give it that weathered look. I'm going to go ahead and pull the track off once I covered up a good majority of the bridge and lay down Decals binders, the matte type, to seal down that pigment. So that's the idea. Hopefully it works. So the next thing I'll do, I'll just go ahead and stipple it down a bit, holding onto the track. Don't want to push it. Just lightly tapping it to bring down that pigment in between the tracks. So the next thing we'll do, we're going to go ahead and pull off the track very carefully. And there you go. Okay, a bit more of the mud as you enter the bridge lane part and a little bit less as you move it along. And as for the rest of the track, we're just going to go ahead and dump it out as much as we can because we need it for the other side. Next, we'll add the Decals binder, just drip it on there. I'm trying not to disturb too much of the track print. So here we are with the final weathering of the AVLB bridge component. And as you can see with the VMS and the AFV Club tracks, it came out quite well. I'm very happy with the results that came out. Just to let you know that this portion of the bridge is where the tank is first entering, first arriving, first getting onto the bridge component. And as the mud-tracked vehicle goes across the bridge, it leaves behind a bit of the trail and a bit of the tracks that you see here. The front portion over here on the other side of the bridge is a bit more muddied. as it attaches to the other side of the bank or ravine or obstacle. So yeah, the weathering here, the watermarks on there via AK Interactive on the other side as well. Both came out quite nice. A little bit lesser of the weathering watermarks on the other side. So yeah, bridge component looking very sharp. Okay. The only thing that I wanted to point out that in the transport position, this part of the bridge over here will be on top, and the lesser portion, the less weathered area of the bridge will be underneath that that second half of the bridge. So that makes sense because it's this part that's over here that's going to be deployed out first. The rear portion over here, the top portion of the bridge is going to be attached and then slowly rolled out to the forward part of the tank. So once again, looks very sharp, looks very good. I'm very happy with the VMS product. Just one thing I want to point out, make sure you do have enough of your binder. Applying that onto the pigments. As you saw before, I had to apply quite a bit of it in scattered locations, maybe even in the middle, and making sure that the whole side of the bridge is covered with that, that binder to make sure everything's okay. Another thing I want to point out, this edge over here, and the same thing on the other outer portion of the bridge, those do not have like a little gully. So when you do apply that binding liquid on there, it's going to tend to run off the side, especially when you're using a hair dryer. So be aware of that, making sure that you have something, maybe even some tape, probably. I haven't really thought about that yet, to make sure it doesn't overrun. Okay, next thing, the upper hole. So this will be my final part of the weathering. I'm going to go ahead and start weathering the top of the main deck here, top of the upper hull. I'm going to be using the VMS Spot On Pigments Light Sand number 11. Just to give it the effect of, a little bit of the sand mud mixture that's already accumulated on the tank itself. I'm just going to go ahead and spray that stuff straight on there. And smash it down just a bit. As you can see, it has that effect of a little bit of a dirt smeared onto like a little bit of a muddied surface. So I did drop in there, basically just drop in a few crumbs right onto the PE screen. I saw on a Leguan book that some of the heavy pebbles, heavy rocks kind of accumulated onto that screen there. So give that a little bit of effect. All right, so we're going to go ahead and add, once again, the Alcat binders. I'm not going to put as much as I did with the bridge component. Found out that it got If I overdid it, it gets a little too messy, a little too sticky, even with the hair dryer. So I'm going to just add a bit of it, let capillary action take effect. Again, hopefully I'm not putting too much. I will try blow drying it a bit. And again, just give it a bit of a let go. That dusty look to the tank itself. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and give it a bit of a shot. We're going to hold it at a pretty much a perpendicular angle since I don't want this stuff to ooze out too much. So you can see now, pretty well dirtied up. Got a few deposits. The crumbs obviously came off. I gotta reapply that. That's not a big sweat. But the cool thing about the VMS material is that you can come by and remove some of those areas. Now, every once in a while, it might get a bit rough in a sense it's not dry completely. You could just re-dry it. It's not a major deal. Just putting scratches where that hatch actually swings open. You can use a toothpick to remove some of the excess pigment that's on there. I'm going to go ahead and give it a little bit more of a drying component. All right, so really quickly, I made a decision about the weathering of the upper hull of the Leopard 2 AVLB. First thing I want to mention is that I'm going to go ahead and shoot up the mud up in this lower skirts, mud splashes along the side skirts as well, upper portion of the body as well, and as well as on the back end of the the heck arm, and a little bit of the back panel of the tank itself. But as I was trying to fit the lower hole and made it to the upper hole, I ran into a bit of a problem. And the problem was that the mud that accumulated on that drive sprocket just like was interfering too much. So looking at references again on the Tankograd book, I noticed that this panel, if not both of these panels, were lifted up because there's a hinge that's here, as with many of the other side skirt panels. And I'm going to lift up this one panel right where my thumb is. I'm going to go ahead, score it, cut it, and then pull it on up. Now, if I do that, it's going to create more of a mud splash, mud accumulation on that upper hole, just as like I'm moving with my hand here, besides being here on the mud flaps itself. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I've already scored and removed this panel. Now this panel should have been like right here. So I already scored it and removed it. And I'm going to pull it up. But as you can see, as I pull it up, there's a pin mark, a mold injection pin mark that needed to be filled in a bit. So that's not a big deal. That's going to be easily done. As far as repainting this panel, that one exposed natural plastic panel that's there, I mean, it's going to get muddied up. I might just do that, sand that injection pin mold, and then paint it over, and then go ahead and muddy it up. So that's the idea. What I'm going to do for that lower flap. So that way the tracks, the drive sprocket that will go right in this area will actually have some freedom to actually be able to be installed onto the lower hull. Other than that, it's just the mud splashing up on the side skirts, as I mentioned to you in that fashion that I'm showing you. Mud splatter, mud accumulation on those foot rests that are here, those footholds. So moving on, we're going to go ahead and place the decals now onto the final steps of the Leopard 2 AVLB. First of all, the decal sheet from Hobby Boss comes with this very exquisite looking warning sheet placement placard that will be placed on the nose of the laying arm here. So that will be actually be going over here. The thing I want to point out though is number one, it might be a little difficult, but it's going to go right up against that edge. Now for me, I was fortunate enough to make this articulated, these rollers that we have here. So I can move that to the side and actually place it right there. So that's not an issue. The other things as well is to identify, which German Army markings I want to place on there. They do have some license plates, decals, this other identification that's over here for, I believe, the battalion or the army that it's in. And of course, your German markings here. But I also purchased a while back this Ukraine special operations decal sheet. When I made the poll a while back about wanting to paint this as either a NATO tank, a German NATO tank, or a Ukrainian tank, most of you said that I should, paint it in the NATO tricolor, which I did. But I'm still want to kind of support Ukraine a bit. So I might put a few of these on here, maybe just white crosses, and these yellow spray painted. And if you look closely, it kind of has a little bit of a running effect, like a running paint effect on there. So that was kind of neat. I might actually put that like on one side of the bridge. But as far as the markings, I'll probably use these guys. Maybe even use these. I don't know. We'll see. But I do want to support my Ukrainian brothers in arms that are fighting that war over there, that terrible war that's now coming up on its third year in 2025. But for now, let's go ahead and finish off this tank. So we're going to go ahead and place these decals. First thing I want to mention is that the decal sheet did have a cover over it, but Hobby Boss, again, this might be your fourth error, don't put tape on the back. I was really close. Okay, I removed one side, and there was this protective sheet that's over most of the decals that you guys usually would see. But it's taped down. Okay, so you'll just cut the tape. But as you cut the tape, you might get some of that tape backing on the back of your decal sheet. So when you're cutting these out, you might cut a little bit of that tape on there. It is a little bit notched. Hopefully you can see that right there on the nose part where those rollers are going to be. So we're going to go ahead and just do the decals real quick. I'm not even going to show you how that's done. I do have my tin of water right down below on the bottom of the screen. And we're just going to put those on. So this is M Modest in closing for the Hobby Boss Leopard 2 AVLB in 1/35 scale. It was a pretty incredible build. There was a lot of steps that were involved in this, a lot of things that I enhanced on the model kit itself, whether it being the masks for the wheels, to the PE on the grills, to just put it in little stowage items inside the stowage boxes, the canvas, the articulation of the kit itself, which was really extreme. It all works pretty much. It takes a lot of work to actually envision it, to actually see if it's going to work or not. I was hoping that laying arm, the gears, remember those gears from way back when? That was pie in the sky. Hopefully that thing would work. That's and the paint and the weathering. It's a lot, ladies and gentlemen. It's a lot. But even though it took me over a year to build this, I thank you very much for all your patience, for my subscribers that subscribe, for looking at this kit. It was a journey. It really was. Building my first tank in probably over 20 years, and doing all the things I needed to do, to weathering the tracks, to making that laying arm work, to actually find a way to put everything together. There were some great things, and there were some things that need to improve, Hobby Boss. For example, some of the instructions on that heck arm, that rear scorpion tail looking thing. There was some ambiguity there, and everything was cramped into one page. That was kind of troublesome. So if you do build this, break it down, guys. Break it down. Look at my other videos. You'll know what I'm talking about. As far as the bridge itself, some modelers are saying that the bridge was too small, not a big length. It was a 26-meter bridge, and it should have been a 28-meter bridge. I mean, okay, 2 more meters. All right, fine. But as far as what it showed, as far as deploying the bridge, I've always wanted to have that bridge deployed, even though I had to manually extend that out. It's pretty heavy. That bridge is pretty heavy for being that type of plastic. I don't know how you can make it a way less. I tried doing that, but there's no going to that. And getting a counterbalance on that tank itself, so that way if I do extend that bridge at least halfway, at least I'll be able to counterbalance. I'm still working on that. Hopefully I'll be able to get some actual metal from the Iowa, but that's another story for another day. But overall, it's a great kit. It really is. If you could get it, get it. It's a very unique bridge laying tank. Yes, you could probably have the Abrams fit onto that tank as well. You probably still have to buy the kit because it has to come with that laying arm and that rear support arm, the heck arm, and probably even the support blade needs to be built on there. It doesn't come with that, unless of course Hobby Boss makes an M1 bridge laying tank. So I thank you all very much. It took me a long time to build this, and I thank you for your patience and all. Please comment, subscribe, like, and share. Otherwise, this is M. Modest, hoping you a very Merry Christmas, happy and better 2025 year. Thank you very much, and enjoy the last of these pictures. Hello everybody, M. Modest here again. We're going to go ahead and continue with our build of the Leguan, the Iguana, the German AVLB. So after I was able to scribe out slightly and scribe out even more, 2 ways I was attacking this. One, which I initially started off, was to attack it from inside. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the results. So far, the sprockets, the drive wheels, they look really good. All right, so we got the last of the supports down. Everything seems to be really good. Nice, smooth articulation so far. And then getting back to this, to that rear piston, I'm now thinking now of actually cutting little notches, drilling all the way through, just cutting all the way through, and actually sliding that thing in. Just to give you a little bit better perspective of what is going to be done with this laying arm, I'm going to show it to you in the side view. I'm going to hold down that one part up there on top of the turret and hold down that pivot point joint. Just really quickly, it does work pretty well. So this right now is your Leopard 2 AVLB Leguan. All completed. This is the tank that's all set and ready to go. The accessory pieces, the front support blade, the stitch child, the rear support arm, the heck arm, the leg arm, the laying arm, all completed. So whoever in the future builds this hobby boss tank, who knows, maybe they do have that 14-meter bridge. Instead of this big 28, which is incorrect. It should be 26. I'm going to try sitting down on this one. Give me a little bit more control there. So I already drilled out one hole right over here in the center, finishing up this second hole. And we're going to go ahead and drill out another 4mm. So there's going to be 3 holes on each side there. So as far as these pigments that I'm placing, the polished metal, I mean, that's good looking. But you also want to, use the putty as part of an outline. You can press the putty onto the tape. You can press the tape onto the putty. So I'm going to do it right now.